to Security Like the 80's, How I Stole Your RF, and we'll be exploring CVE 2022-27254 and more here at RootCon 16. So, who am I? My name is Ayyappan Rajesh, and I'm an aspiring security researcher and student here at UMass Dartmouth. You can follow me on Twitter and even check out my GitHub repository, and here's my website as well. And I worked on this project along with Popov Mikhail, also known as Scorp, and he's the sub-gigahertz architect at Flipper Devices, the company that makes the famous Flipper Zero. And you can reach out to him on Telegram or even check out his GitHub. So what got me into hacking? My journey started about 7 to 8 years ago after watching videos on YouTube, such as Dr. Charlie Miller and Chris Valsek's videos on the famous Jeep hack 5 videos, and even Sammy Kamkar's Open Sesame attack. So, small disclaimer. Yeah, all of this is only for informational and educational purposes only. And most of all, no key fobs were harmed in the making of this video. And everything that I will be talking about over here are already known, and it can be readily found on the internet. And if you'd like to, everything's already up on my GitHub repository. You can go download the files, go through things, learn how to demodulate it yourself, and even download the custom firmware for the Flipper Zero that I'll be talking about soon. So, story time. So how did I get into this, right? So I was doing this course last semester under my professor, Hong Liu. And for the class, we had to do either one of the projects, which was experiment a cybersecurity solution or understand a cybersecurity incident. And for this, I decided to do type A, which was experiment a cybersecurity solution. And I thought it was the perfect time to pick up a HackRF and try something new. So I was searching around for ideas, and I came across this CVE, which was 2019-20626, which spoke about a simple replay attack on a Honda HRV 2017. And as far as I knew, rolling codes had been out for about 20 years, and I personally didn't believe that a simple replay attack would work. So what did I do? I picked up a HackRF from Facebook Marketplace, learned GNU Radio through Justin Monteblano's a video from the Car Hacking Village on GNU Radio, and basically submitted for a new CVE, which was assigned as CVE 2022-27254. And I did this work with Blake Berry, also known as Hacking into Your Heart, until the CVE submission. And here's another picture of that too. So this was featured in the media, such as The Record, Fox News, Threadpost, and even The Register. And I was also interviewed by ABC's Good Morning America. And yeah, that's pretty much about it. So a little more about keyless entry systems. So in vehicles after 2014, most of it, like over 72%, already have it. And after 2019, that number has only gone up to 91%. And we can all expect this number to keep rising, even because even the lower end trims of cars now come default with keyless entry, which is an amazing feature. So what we'll be exploiting over here is the remote keyless entry as opposed to the passive keyless entry. So the remote keyless entry was first introduced in 1982 on a Renault Fuego, and it operates at either 315, 433, or 868 megahertz, depending on which part of the world you're from. So the way remote keyless entry works is you press a button on your key fob, and it's as good as broadcasting a password maybe 15, 30 feet away from you, and everyone can listen to it, and only your car knows that, yes, that's the right password, and only then it will unlock for you. So there's no verification or any form of two-way handshake. It's purely a one-way thing. So a little more about RKEs. So because everything is dealing with frequency over here, you have three types of modulation, which is amplitude key shifting, frequency key shifting, and phase key shifting. And like the name suggests, the data is transmitted either in the amplitude, frequency, or the phase of the wave. But in this case, we'll be looking at frequency key shifting because that's what the key fob operates on. So a little more about static and rolling keys. So like the fixed code suggests, it's like the same password or same code being sent over and over again. It never expires. Whereas on a rolling code, every time the button is pressed, the code keeps rolling and it keeps changing. So even if someone did intercept it, you could not use the same code and do a simple replay attack like this. So the tools that I used throughout this was fccid.io, any RF transceiver. I personally used the HackRF and the USRP, and then moved on to the Flipper Zero. And for analyzing and understanding what the wave looks like, you could use GQRX or SPI-SDR based on your OS and what you prefer. Otherwise, another cool tool is the Universal Radio Hacker, which is really user-friendly and good for people new to messing around with any sort of RF signals. And then GNU Radio, which is another amazing open source tool. So the FCC ID for this is KRV52X on the, which we can get through the key fob. And here's a picture of the document itself. So looking at this, we can already tell that it's some sort of frequency key shifting. And we know that it's around 433.6 to 61 to 433.67 megahertz-ish. But we can dig deeper into this. And then the RF transceivers like the HackRF, Flipper Zero, Yardstick 1, and the USRP Enter 10 help you receive and transmit any sort of RF signal. Something that I should mention is that the HackRF and the USRP are software-defined radios, whereas the Flipper Zero and the Yardstick 1 are computer-controlled radio devices. So one main difference between these two is that for a software-defined radio, all you need to know is the frequency, and you can simply tell it, okay, listen on this frequency, save it and play it back. Whereas for a Flipper Zero or a Yardstick 1, you need to tell it exactly the exact specifications, such as what's the frequency it's on, what sort of modulation, what sort of encoding, decoding, the difference between the frequencies every time it shifts, and things like that. So our first tool, GQRX, can show us that it's again FSK like the fccid.io document suggested. And here's a little video of that. And then SPI-SDR does the same. It's just that I use that on Mac OS and this was on a Windows. And this tells you a little more about the way the key fob operates. So it's at 433 as well as 434 megahertz-ish. So Universal Radio Hacker is the user-friendly app I was talking about, and you can do everything from capturing, demodulating, flipping, and even transmitting any RF signal that you'd like through any device. So this is the flowchart for GNU Radio, and this is how it's captured. So all it's doing is taking it from the Osmocom source, which is the HackRF, and then just saving it. So these were the settings that I had used for GNU Radio, and you can download these files from GitHub as well if you'd like to try this out. And here's the same file for transmitting. So after saving the file, you can simply multiply it by a constant, throttle it to the sample rate for the HackRF, which was 2M, and then just send it to the HackRF, and it will do whatever the file says. So here's a little video. So like the video showed you, I first used the start file to and replayed that in order to start the car, and then replayed the unlock file. So I could not only unlock your car, but also start it. Um, and this is another one of my favorites. So like you saw, the key fob has a feature where you can roll down all your windows and even open the sunroof. And in the summer, I'm a huge fan of this because having a black car doesn't really help, and it's really hot. So using this feature really helps it cool the car down or get some air in. But let's say someone didn't like me, and they did the same attack on me, and they captured the same file for rolling down the windows and sunroof, and then came back in the winter and replayed it. This is pretty much what could happen to you. And moving on, digging deeper into the actual key fob. So after opening up the key fob, this is what it looks like. And when you take a closer look at it, at the data sheet for the NXP PCF 7900, you can then look at the actual pins for this. So this this chip uses SPI, and all of this was done by Scott, who took only one night and 3 beers to reverse engineer the entire key fob. So a little more about this. So SPI was developed by Motorola in the 1980s, and it supports either 3-wire or 4-wire, and it consists of your serial output, MOSI, which stands for master output slave input, MISO, which stands for master input slave output, and SCLK, which is the serial clock. So in this case, we just used the key fob over here, just used the 3-pin output. And like the pictures where you can see, we used SALAE logic to understand what's going on in the actual key fob. And here's a picture of that. So this is what it looks like. So we use the MOSI, the MISO, and the clock to figure out what's going on inside. So you might be asking me, what do these numbers mean and what significance does it have? So to quote Dr. Weil, it's in the data sheet. And after looking at it more closely, you can then see that each one of those numbers, like 0B, 111, 0111, actually meant was nothing but an instruction for the key fob and what it should do. So this is the useful information that we extracted. So such as MISO 0B 1000, 0100 meant toggling the lower bit for the FSK, and then the picture that was there in the first slide was actually the one for the baud rate, which was 0B011 0011, which does nothing but tell the key fob to select a certain baud rate, which we've calculated over here. So throughout this thing, we found out that it operates at 433.657070 hertz by looking at the frequency config 1 low byte, which we've determined through the data sheet. And then likewise, it's at 434.176948 hertz. And we already knew that it has frequency shifting key modulation, but the deviation wasn't precise through GQRX or SPI-SDR. So that's why this helped. And we know that too now. And we even know the baud rate, and which is very important for what we're about to do next. So after that, after looking at the signal, we can tell that it's Manchester encoded. So how do you calculate, or how do you demodulate it rather? Because it's still encoded by something, and if you want to change it to binary, you would need to know how to demodulate it. So to do that, remember the number 62.81 microseconds. And then this is all you do. So to calculate the Manchester bit rate, you divide 1 second by the shortest duration, which was 62.81 microseconds, and divide that by 2. So that gives you about 7,961 kilobytes per second. And that's some quick math for you. So now what? So we already had the previous file. And then just by using another analyzer for decoding Manchester, we feed in the bitrate. And then even though the screenshot over here doesn't highlight it, we also enter the preamble bits to ignore, which was 20. And the software does it for you. It will just demodulate everything that you have. And like you see over here, it gives the whole value in either binary or in hexadecimal for short. And so you might be asking, why did we do this, right? So like I said earlier, the flipper 0 is not an SDR, and you need to tell it exactly what to do. So then using all this information, Scorp wrote custom firmware and made this happen. So we now have 433.65 and 434.17 frequency added custom to the flipper, and also a modulation, which we named Honda 1, and there's Honda 2 as well, which is more sensitive, but it does the same thing. And it is FSK, and it follows all the parameters as you saw earlier. And here's a picture of the SY SDR capture. So as you can see, right below, you have the actual key fob capture. And then above that, you have the flipper 0 as well. And as the picture suggests, the capture for the flipper 0 when it's replayed, it is a bit noisy, and that's because of the CCO1 chip, which is already known. But does it really get the work done? It looks the same, but does it work? Let's find out. So like the video suggests, you can now, you don't even need a HackRF anymore. All you need is this bad boy, a flipper 0, and you can capture any key fob for any most 10th gen Hondas and just do a simple replay and it will work. So time for some memes. You guys might have heard of Civic with a laptop. It's the most feared thing in the car community. Um, And this is a cool picture as well on the right, where someone actually managed to get Linux on their car's infotainment system rather. So imagine a Civic with a laptop and a Hacker F1. Isn't it the ultimate war driving setup? So through like the picture shows, all you'd need to do is wait in a parking garage, or rather than even having a laptop, you could just leave this in a tiny little bag. Come the next day, analyze everything, load it onto a flipper 0, and then you can essentially go replay the same capture and pretty much open anyone's car up. So you might ask, what's the solution to this? So I'm not going to suggest putting your keys in a Faraday pouch, and actually I got trolled for it. Because it's not a permanent solution, right? And even then, you'd have to remove the key from your Faraday pouch every time you need to go open your car or drive it. So rolling codes, right? So you're telling me to prevent a simple replay attack, just use rolling codes, because every time you press the button, even if someone hears the password, it's still expired. There's no way you can go use an expired code to unlock, right? Yeah, I don't think so. So my buddy Kevin 2600, who's part of the car hacking village um, in China, actually came up with a flaw called as rolling pawn. And we also found out that the same vulnerability was also spoken about by my friend Levy and uh, his professor at Black Hat, and their talk was called Rollback. So I guess it's even rolling codes aren't safe, because all they're doing is replaying a sequence of captures in a certain order, so that um, the pseudo-random number generator in the car, the counter gets resynchronized. So think of rolling codes as a for loop. So every time you press a button, just imagine I keeps incrementing every time, and the password or code keeps changing. But imagine if you already had an old capture for a certain value of I, and you were able to resynchronize the car to that value of I, and then use an expired code against it, which is now valid according to the car. And here's a short demo of that. So there you go. So even a newer car which has rolling codes is now vulnerable. And according to the researchers at Black Hat, um, they estimate about 70% of Asian-made cars to be affected by this vulnerability, and are working towards finding out what cars are vulnerable to this attack. And they still don't know why, which is really alarming. So when Kevin first came out with this research, Honda claimed that it wasn't possible. Same thing like a simple replay attack when I put mine out. And he reached out to his friend Rob Stumpf, and he read an article about the same on the Drive, and actually proved that the rolling pawn or rollback attack still works on a newer Honda. And this is what happened after that too. So um, they did say that there is no indication that the reported vulnerability to unlock and lock doors results in an ability to drive an Acura or a Honda vehicle. And that's partly true, because to drive away with the car, there still is an immobilizer present within, and you'd need the passive keyless entry system um, in order to do that. So that's the only way you can disable that. I mean, sure, you can use a relay attack, but then that's not what we're looking for here. So when they said this, I thought to myself, challenge accepted. And here's a little video of how I stole my own car in just under 4 minutes using another tool and a flipper zero.
Try driving it? Yep.
So, like you saw, once you have physical access into the car, um, almost everyone knows that there's the OBD2 port located right under the steering wheel, and which gives you access into the car. And through that, although we use a key programmer over here, I'm sure you could do the same with just an OBD2 to a USB and a laptop running any sort of software where you can send CAN messages and access the UDS. So here's an example of that. We already have Jay Turler's CAN talk, which he also gave a talk about at Car Hacking Village, and I'm sure he's giving one at RootCon too. So with software like this, it would take no time for someone just to download a script, plug it into a car, and do whatever they want to. Because once you have physical access into the car, if you know what you're doing, um, you could drive away and do whatever you want with the car, like it's your own. So this is a very serious issue. And there's also a senator from Massachusetts who sent out letters to most of the automotive companies, asking them questions as to why this rise in vehicle theft is happening. And in fact, the NHTSA approximates the cost of stolen vehicles to be about $7 billion in 2020 alone. And those statistics are only for the United States. Just imagine what the damage or the number will be for worldwide, right? And about 804,000 vehicles were stolen in 2020 alone again. And that again is only for the United States. So we did have a 2018 Civic hatchback at the Car Hacking Village during DEF CON a few weeks ago. And I was doing demos for everyone that came. And we also had the firmware available when they scanned the QR code for the Flipper Zero, and as well as the unlock and lock files for the car. So only if you had a Flipper Zero, I would help you out and help you set it up for your Flipper Zero, and then you could go mess around with the car, have fun. And here's a picture of that. And then on the right, we have a picture of the whole Car Hacking Village team, who I'm really grateful for having me there. And also, I had the honor to meet the president's cybersecurity advisor, who's also the national director for cybersecurity for America, John Inglis, and he gave me this really cool challenge coin as well. And he also played with the Flipper Zero and managed to unlock and lock the car. So that was something really cool that we did at the Car Hacking Village. So what next? You can join us on this journey too. So even though this presentation only spoke about fixed codes, Kevin and the other researchers from the Black Hat talk called Rollback are actively working towards making a database of every single car affected out there, whether it's due to a simple replay attack or a rollback attack, and we're exploring other attack vectors as well. So if you'd like to learn and try this out on your own car, you can sign up at the Google form or by scanning the QR code below. And the reason why we all feel that it's very important is because just because of the number of just because of the sheer number of cars out there, and the fact that a Honda Civic in the United States versus Philippines or India is going to be very different due to different regulations or laws or whatever. And having an exact number of cars affected by this, or knowing what cars affected by this, would not only help law enforcement, but would also help consumers in understanding whether their car is affected or not. And hopefully, this whole initiative would bring about a positive impact on automotive cybersecurity and help create keyless entry systems a tad bit more safer. So please feel free to scan it. You can reach out to any of us, and we'd be more than happy to help you. And these were the stickers that I was giving out at Car Hacking Village at DEF CON as well. So on the left, we have the CVE 2022-27254 sticker. And on the right, we had the Rolling Pond sticker as well. So a huge thank you to everyone, the Flipper Zero team, my friend Avishai, who designed the stickers actually, the College of Engineering at UMass Dartmouth, um, East Coast Chip Keys for helping me out with the programming keys, Car Hacking Village, DEF CON, Macnell's and Mass Cyber Center, as well as RootCon and everyone that made this happen, including Dax, Jay, and everyone else. And a huge shout out to the UMass D Cybersecurity Center and Professor Kaslingam, Fiandela, Professor Liu, Zhao, Professor Weil, as well as my mentor, Sam Curry, and Jerry Woody, Connor McLaughlin, and everyone from Car Hacking Village, Robert, Justin, Jesse, and everyone. Yeah. So um, here's more references of further reading if you'd like to do. And in case you can't find anything here, or if you'd like to know more about this, feel free to reach out to me. And yeah, hack the planet.